presenters with complete bios with the Supervision Summit and Leadership Forum page on the PeerTAC website and click the photo. And now please join me in welcoming Helen, Skipper, and Precious Lugo. Oh,
Skip, I'm not hearing you. It doesn't show that you're muted, but it's not, the sound isn't coming through. You want to try without the headphones?
maybe there.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I think I got it. Hello, everyone. Sorry for that little technical difficulty. You know, we're in a different age and time from when we just met in person. My name is Helen Skipper. I am the executive director of the New York City Justice Peer Initiative. I am here with my co-presenter, Ms. Precious Lugo, and we're going to talk about unlocking futures. We're going to talk about the keys to supervising justice impacted individuals. Thank you all for joining me today. So we got a lot of slides. We might go very quickly. We might go very slowly. This depends how this works, but I do want to get you all the information that you need. So apologies if I tend to speed up a little. And I just did this. My name is Skip. I am the founding executive director of the New York City Justice Peer Initiative. But I'm not going to read what's on the slide. You'll have a chance to hear from me later, and we'll get more into it. Okay, sorry, I had a little phone call. We'll get more into that. With me today is Miss Precious Lugo. You'll get more into who she is and what she does. Hey, Precious, you ready to do this?
Hey, yes, I am. How's everybody doing?
All right, we're going to continue on.
Yeah.
We are at the beginning. What is the beginning? We're going to do the welcome, we're going to do the intro, and we're going to go through the agenda. So, agenda at number 1. This is what we're doing now. Number 2, we're going to talk about who we are and why we do what we do. Our third thing will be workshop overview and learning objectives. Number 4, we're going to talk about some big data. We're going to talk about what the numbers say because they just point to how we do the work and why we do the work. Part number 5, we're going to do an intro to justice impacted individuals. Number 6, we're going to talk about different worldviews and the importance of empathy and understanding.
All right.
Go ahead, Precious.
I'll jump in really quick. So the second part of our agenda will include hard skills versus soft skills, and we'll go into details about what those are with some examples. We'll discuss empowering those who are impacted, the supportive environments and how to create those. And then we'll go through a summary of everything that we went through and see if you guys have any questions or concerns, anything y'all want to discuss. And then that'll be all.
Thank you so much, Precious. Thank you so much. So we're in personal narratives. We're just going to talk slightly about why we do what we do and why it's so beneficial. So my name is Skip. As I said, I am the founding executive director of the New York City Justice Peer Initiative. This is a quote that for me just like lights the path for me. This quote reads, "For there is always light, if only brave enough to see it. If only we were brave enough to be it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that I am brave enough to be it. I am directly impacted. I spent 25 years going in and out of the criminal justice system, of the substance misuse system, of the homelessness system, of the mental health system. Today, not only am I the executive director of the New York City Justice Peer Initiative, I'm also in grad school pushing towards a PhD in criminology. Why? Because I can. And also because those of us who are justice impacted, we always get the short end of the stick. We're always part of the never woulda coulda club. You guys know what the never woulda coulda club is? That is the club where everybody in it is felt not to be able to handle anything, to do anything, to be anything. Every time I went to jail, they always put me up under the jail because I was a statistic. It just wasn't felt that I would ever move past that. But move past, I did. So when they say recovery is real, I'm here to be the poster child of that. When they say second chances matter, I'm here to be the poster child of that. So as the ED of the New York City Justice Peer Initiative, I created an online certification for justice peers that is now residing on the Academy of Peer Services website. I also do this training in person. I create pathways for those of us who are justice impacted to be employed. I create employment positions working with separate agencies and organizations on building justice peers. How do you incorporate that? And I'm going to turn it over for Precious. Go ahead, Precious. Oh, by the way, this is just a slide that just kind of like shows who I am and what I do. Here is my proud graduation. As you see, I was very proud. I had a lot of honors. Justice peers, we are superheroes. This picture up here in the far left corner is a proud member of the Rikers Public Memory Project. My narrative and story was actually transcribed into a full art project, and this is me. And here in the corner is just me doing a keynote somewhere, you know, swaglicious. That's what I like to do. I like to be up and in your face because, again, it was thought that I could never do anything or be anything. And I'm out here bigger than life, and I'm doing some things, and I'm creating pathways, and I'm shining a light that those of us who are justice impacted, we can succeed. I will now turn it over to Precious.
All right. Well, hey, everybody again. So my quote here is, if your dreams don't scare you, they are not big enough. And I heard this quote when I was a senior in high school, and I attended a mock assembly in Albany, when I had the pleasure of going. And when I heard this quote, it stuck with me. And to me, you know, it's not about you being scared of your dreams. To me, it's just your dreams are an element of focus. So it's about turning those dreams into a reality. And when I attended that mock assembly, it really did something for me. I grew up as the youngest in my family. There was 5 siblings, so I had a lot to live up to. But I also grew up without my father. So he faced some time in prison, and that had a lot of effect on me when I was growing up. So when I attended this in high school, it really shaped everything for me, and it helped me decide what I wanted to do moving forward, in which I then went to college for my criminal justice degree. I got it and then landed a job as a youth peer advocate. Yes, and then going into my photos here, which just explain a little bit more of who I am. That is me graduating from Buffalo State with my bachelor's. I was the first in my family to do that. What led me to want to go to school for law was growing up without my father, and just, you know, as a little girl, not understanding much, all I knew is that a lawyer can keep my dad out of prison. And that's what I wanted, you know, my father home with me. So I proceeded going to school. I graduated, and when I landed a job in advocacy, I haven't been to law school yet because I love what I do. Excuse me, I love what I do. I started off working with kids who were going through similar things that I went through as a youth here locally in Buffalo, New York. And in the picture down below, is me with my nieces and nephews, and I have 15 nieces and nephews. So what I do for the youth in my community, I also do for my nieces and nephews. So I'm big on that. I'm big on being there for the youth. In the top corner there was me going back to the conference that I went to in high school that I attended as a youth, where I heard that quote. I got to go back and tell my story as a successful adult and how that experience shaped me. So just to give hope to the other youth that were also there. The middle two photos are just a little bit of personality photos. I'm a very outgoing person. I love to have fun. I'm the auntie with no kids, so I still have a youth in me. I love to go out and have fun. The top photo is me where I did a mud run. It was the time of my life. I had a ball. And my family came out to support me, so it was pretty cool. But that's a little bit about me and my involvement here.
Thank you so much, Precious.
Yes, yes.
We're going to go into the workshop overview. Go ahead, Precious.
All right. So these are just some of the things that we're going to go over. We're going to distill down the big picture through data where, Skip will go through the numbers. We're going to understand some of the unique challenges that justice impacted individuals have gone through. We're going to discuss worldviews, empathy, and understanding, and go over some of the empowerment and supportive tactics.
Thank you so much. Let's jump into it. Y'all ready? Because we want to take a ride. Big data. What the numbers say. At the end of the day, numbers is what makes the world go round. Numbers is what delineate what we do, how we do, who we do it for, and to what extent we do it for. So let's be honest. Let's start big and let's distill down. There are 11.5 million folks incarcerated in the world. And that's such a big number and it means something, but we're going to get to that in just a moment if you bear with me. Out of those 11.5 million plus, let me just say that, 1.68 million, another big number. And the reason why I put that up is because despite making up close to 5% of the global population, the United States actually has more than 20% of the world's prison population. That seems a little off, right? Since 1970, our population and incarceration has increased by 500%. Like, I can't even get 100%, but 500%, like, really? Let's go down even further. 610,000 are released from federal and state prison every year. That's a huge number. Let's distill that down just a bit more. 25,000 are released to New York State every year. And this is why we're sitting here in this presentation. We're sitting here in this presentation because of the 25,000. Now we can just take a minute and breathe out, and I'm going to breathe out, and I'm just going to say this. Whoa, those are some big numbers. So how do we do what we do, but do it effectively and do it efficiently and help these 25,000? The impacts of mass incarceration has fueled what we do. I'm not going to get academic and go into that, but just know that is the absolute driver. And I also want to point out something else, that women are now the highest rate of incarceration here in the United States. But let's talk a minute. Why is this so important? Why is this so important? So if we look at this little graph here, the data tells us that we need services. But if we need services, in order for us to give service, we have to do some capacity building amongst ourselves. We have to be ready to deliver these services. So also, that means we do more, we be more. But then let's go down to resources. The data shows us how many people are coming out and the fact that we need resources. It also helps us to raise awareness. And also, we got to create some policies. Like, somebody needs to decide what we're doing, how we're doing, and to what extent. So creating policy is always a big thing. Now we're going to go into an intro to Justice Impacted, and I'm going to hand this back over to my colleague, Precious.
All right. So we're going to go into what does it mean, the definition of justice impacted. So a working definition of justice impacted is anyone who has been arrested or convicted or has served time in a correctional facility.
And that means that is a roundabout working definition. A lot of people have questions. It means that anyone who's been arrested, if you've been arrested, you by definition are justice impacted. If you've been convicted, you're justice impacted. If you've served time in a correctional facility, you're justice impacted. Can you be arrested and not be convicted? Absolutely. But you're still justice impacted.
Mhm.
Can you be arrested and not serve time in a correctional facility? Again, absolutely. But you're still justice impacted. Can you be convicted and not serve time in a correctional facility? Again, absolutely. But you're still justice impacted. Some common barriers for those who are justice impacted, and this is both for youth and adults, and I'm going to bring Precious back on in a minute to dive a little deeply into the youth aspect. But common barriers for us are housing. We don't have a safe place to stay. Community. We are not in community. Some of us don't have families or lost those families, or the families have moved on. We don't have relationships with people here in the outside world because we spent so long being incarcerated or in institutional type settings. Economic. Economic is always a common barrier. That doesn't just decide are we working or if we work. It always goes back to housing as well. We need money for housing, but if we come home, more than likely we're not coming home with a job. So if we're not coming home with a job, can we get stable housing? Can we build community? And of course, I always have to mention the digital divide. Technology moves at the speed of light. What is in today is out tomorrow, and something better is there. If you are working with someone who has been incarcerated or institutionalized for a number of years, there will be a digital divide. And how do we overcome that? I'm going to pass this over to Precious to talk specifically about the youth common barriers.
Hey, so here we have listed 6 of the common barriers for youth. And the first one being the lack of access to education and employment. The challenges in assessing quality education and secure employment due to their involvement within the justice system. And as Skip explained earlier, the involvement being anything involved with the anything with the system itself. The second one is stigma and discrimination, which makes it challenging for youth to find housing, employment, or build regular relationships. And those are with their peers, family, their school. Mental health challenges is a common barrier, and those include depression, anxiety, and PTSD because of their experiences. Substance abuse issues is a really common one. They turn to the substance as a way to cope because they don't know how else to deal with the stress. They don't know positive ways to deal with the stress. Lack of support systems. So they don't have the family, the friends, the mentor, and it's because they don't know how to build these relationships, the difficulty in that. And then just the lack of life skills. When it comes to financial literacy, the problem solving and communication are areas where there's struggle. And then when you think of ways how to have solutions for these is like implementing the mentorship programs to offer guidance to the youth, to support them and give them the resources that they need to help them navigate these challenges that they face.
Thank you so much, Precious. We're now in our next section where we're going to talk about different worldviews and the importance of empathy and understanding. I want to be intentional here. We are going to introduce some sociological terms which are very apt for our participants in the world we live in. The first thing I want to just mention briefly is cultural competence versus cultural humility. If you've been working in this field for a long time, you've already heard that expression, cultural competence. But we've now really replaced that expression with cultural humility. Cultural competency was the old catchphrase. But at the end of the day, can we ever be truly competent in a culture that's not ours? I'm going to take that as everybody nodding and saying yes. So now we work more from an aspect of cultural humility, which is to know that we don't know, but we remain empathetic and we remain open. Let's talk about empathy versus sympathy. A resource for this, and I just tried to be do a light touch on this, is Dr. Brene Brown and her wonderful YouTube video on empathy. It's located on YouTube. I suggest everyone who has not seen it, please go look at it. And it's like in a cartoon fashion, so it's like really cute. So Dr. Brown says empathy fuels connection and sympathy drives disconnection. So, and looking at that, our definition for empathy is the ability to take someone's perspective and recognize that as their truth. We're missing a word here. Apologies for that. We're missing more than a word here. Sympathy is strictly feeling sorry for someone. Like we don't need pity. My community does not need pity. We don't need you feeling sorry for ourselves. What we need is you to just be able to recognize and know that we have a different perspective, and our perspective is our truth. Let's talk about a worldview. Again, this is a sociological term. The definition of that is that a combination of your culture, your history, and your personal life journey makes up your worldview. But what's important to know is that this worldview drives how we view and navigate the world and everything in it. So everything that I've gone through, all my life experiences, my journeys, my culture, how I was raised, the places and spaces I've been in, this has all given me roadmap for how I navigate the world today and how I move through it and everything in it. This is not something that is, I want to say, individualistic to those of us with lived experiences of justice and impact. This actually applies to everyone. We all have a worldview. It's just that ours sometimes is just a little bit different from what you might think it is or should be. And it's important to realize that our worldview is our worldview. It's not about what other people think. It's about what motivates and drives us. We are now going to go into hard skills versus soft skills. These are things that we need to work, but let's talk about how we are impacted by them and what they are. Hard skills are job-related competencies and any abilities that are necessary to complete work-related tasks. And mind you, hard skills apply to any job, not just peer jobs. Any job position, there are hard skills that are related to it. And you need these hard skills in order to successfully complete those job duties. Some examples of hard skills are technical skills. Now, when I say technical skills, I really mean application. I'm talking about hardware here because down, you see, we have software. I'm talking about hardware. Some of us do not know how to even turn on a computer. And let's not even get into those smartphone things, those Apples and all of that. Some of us don't know how to use it. Believe me, I'm still struggling with my iPhone, but at least I got kids who can help me navigate. But some of us don't even know that. Analytical skills and critical thinking is just like putting two and two together. Sometimes you come out with four and sometimes you don't. Sometimes there are minute steps in between. But a lot of us have not really fleshed out and learned analytical skills and critical thinking, writing skills, working as a peer or in any aspect of social service. A lot of times there are notes and things we have to, we have to transcribe. You know how they say, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. Some of us have a little problems with those. Customer service, which is just being able to be with people, and do that in a positive, jolly manner. That might be a problem. Not because we don't want to know how to do it, but because maybe we've never been taught. Communication. How do you communicate? How do you communicate professionally? There's a difference between how you talk at work versus how you talk at the dinner table or how you talk with your friends. Maybe we don't know those differences. And software, much less about turning on a computer. How do you navigate the different software packages? Some of us don't know anything about email or Outlook or any one of those. Now, let's go into soft skills. Soft skills are personal qualities and traits that impact how you work. Some soft skills examples, and some of these, both soft skills and hard skills, can be interchanged and vice versa when it comes to those who are just impacted. People skills. That's building relationships. And the places and spaces we've been in, we've been conditioned to mistrust. So how do we build relationships? Teamwork skills. Again, in the places and spaces we've been, we're out there all for ourselves. We got to do what we got to do in order for us to survive. Do we know how to work with someone else? Do we know how to play nice in the sandbox? Not unless we're shown how. Time management. If you're used to living on a facility clock that wakes you up and puts you to bed, that's one thing. But you're made to do that. In that place, you have a loss of agency, which is your wherewithal to be able to dictate your own movements, where you go and what you do. And incarcerations or institutionalization, all of that is taken care for us. We're told when to sleep, when to get up, when to work, when to go to school, when to play. But when we come home, these are things that are literally up to us. And maybe we can manage and maybe we can't. And then we look at openness to criticism. Constructive criticism is a necessary evil. It's something we have to learn how to accept, and it's something we have to learn how to give. But learning how to accept criticism, even given in a positive manner, even given in a way that's meant to build us up for our growth, accepting that is something that we might not be able to do unless we're taught. I'm not saying we can't do it, but when you come from a place that any wrong word is considered disrespect, then you know what happens behind that. Dependability, same thing. Are we dependable? Yes, we are. Is that something that we come with automatically? Sometimes we need to be taught. And resourcefulness. We are very resourceful. We knew how to take $1 and make it into 10. But that resourcefulness was probably around some issues that are not present today. So it's about redirecting our thoughts, redirecting that resourcefulness that we all have within us. Here are some strategies for supporting our development. We definitely need empathy. We definitely need relationship building. We need professional development, which for me, I liken to the soft skills. We need professional development. We need capacity building, which again, for me, are hard skills. And an example of that would be on-the-job training. We need proper supervision. Now, I know this whole summit has been designated and designed to talk about supervision, so I'm not going to go too deeply in there, but I will say educative supervision is that you're a supervisor who teaches, who instructs. Administrative, for me as a peer supervisor, administrative is when I have to talk to you about being late, about no call, no show. But we also need supportive supervision. And going back to me being a peer supervisor, I like to think of myself as my peer's peer. So yes, if I have to talk to one of my peers about their failure to get to work on time and it's consistent, it's not just me talking to them about it. It's about me sitting down with them and looking at how they come to work, pulling up the bus map, pulling up the train map, and helping them work out what's the best way to get to work so that they will be there on time. It's not about beating them down because they keep coming in late, because there's always something behind that. We're doing trauma-informed supervision. Let's work together and let's figure out ways where we can get you to work or to an appointment on time. Another strategy, and I think one of the best ones, is knowledge of the peer role. If you are hiring peers, it would definitely behoove you to know and understand what our role is, what we do, what we don't do. I think the most hardest, fastest rule about peers is that we don't tell people what to do. We help them work through it. We help them with decision making. We help them with laying out everything from point A to B. But at the end of the day, that decision is entirely our participants. We are not telling adults, you got to do A, B, and C. But we're simply making sure that they are well informed so that they can make a well-informed decision. We need to have knowledge of recovery-oriented values, practices, and cultures. Peers are recovery-oriented. We're in recovery. And you can't know how to work with us if you're not recognizant of some of our values, some of our practices, and some of our culture. And last is resourceful. As a peer supervisor or as a supervisor of those with lived experiences, yeah, we need you to be resourceful because there's going to be some things that's going to come up that we need. And you might not be able to teach us or show us, but in your tool bag, you should have resources that you can pass on to us that can teach us and show us. Resources like the local library is having a tech 101 class where they're teaching you basic skills of operating computers and laptops, basic skills about Outlook and emails and things like that. Now we are going to go into empowering the justice impacted. Take it away, Precious.
All right, so here on the slide it reads, we are not looking for a handout. We need a helping hand up. We can and we do succeed because second chances are real. So we're not looking for a handout. You know, we want the tools needed so that we can succeed, because if not, then we're being enabled. We want the help so that there's a goal we're reaching towards, and once you're out the picture, we can do this on our own. So with that being said, some strategies for empowerment, not just of youth, for all individuals, is providing them the access to education and training, because again, that's something that we continue saying that's a barrier for them. This is the help that they need. We need promoting mental health and trauma support services, creating a network of support that can include friends, families, counselors, support services, implementing mentorship programs, you know, that can help with skill building, advocacy, and making sure that, again, you have all the tools you need so that you can succeed on your own, and offering financial literacy and job readiness training to all those that have been impacted again. And then
Thank you so much, Precious.
all
We're
right.
now, go ahead, Precious. Take it
Oh,
away. I'm
I was
sorry, my
okay.
mistake.
You're on a roll.
Yeah.
All right. And then finally, we want to talk about creating supportive environments for those who have been impacted. So here's just something that it says, please show up as your true, authentic self. We have a deception meter that's fine-tuned. When you create the environment, you are the environment. When we succeed, you succeed, and vice versa. And a good rule of thumb is please don't open the door and let us in without giving us the proper supports to be able to stay in that room. And this goes without saying, is that you want to give us the tools we need to help us succeed so that, again, we can do that on our own, so we're not being enabled. You want to foster a sense of community, a sense of belonging, respect within the communities. And yeah, so I'll let Skip jump in now.
You did good. You get to it. So I'm just gonna unpack this just a little. When we say show up as your true authentic self, we need you to be open. We need you to be you. That deception meter that we have, those places and spaces we've been in, we've been conditioned to mistrust. We've been conditioned to disrespect. This is something that has been built in us. We've been conditioned that those in power that we should be respecting are actually doing things very disrespectfully. So that deception meter, like we can see it coming. When you are empathetic and when you want to do the work you're doing, when you want us to succeed, we can tell. And that is the fuel that we need. And again, when we succeed, you succeed. And this rule of thumb, there's a piece that goes without it. It's not just please don't open the door and let us in without giving us the improper supports to stay in the room. The piece behind that is, if that does occur, you're basically setting us up for failure. And that's one thing we want to move past that. We don't want to be set up for failure. We want to succeed. And just being mindful of the time. But I think we've almost made it through. Precious, take it away.
All right, so just to wrap up everything that we've discussed today, everything that we went through, these are all of the objectives, everything that we feel you should have a better understanding of now that you've taken this workshop. So, we reviewed the empathy and understanding worldviews, the culture competency versus cultural humility. We went over the numbers and how that drives our work. We reviewed both the hard and soft skills and provided some examples of those, the strategies for empowerment and support, giving you a better understanding of the justice impacted and how that involves any type of involvement, and then reviewed the common barriers for both adults and the youth.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Precious. We're just about at the end. So we want to say thanks, but we also want to open up the floor for any questions. Can my moderator give me a time check?
We have about 17 minutes left.
Okay, we got enough time to dig in some questions or really look at this a little further, maybe unpack a little differently. Moderator, how are we going to take questions?
You guys can unmute if you feel comfortable with that. You can put it in the chat, however you guys feel comfortable. So if anybody has a question and would like to speak, just unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hi, I'm
I'd
sorry.
like to say
I was
thank you,
typing.
Skip. What?
Oh, I was going to just ask a question. I was just typing.
Okay,
I
give it
wanted
to
to know
us.
is what kind of trainings do you recommend for people who want to work with this population?
What kind of training should you take as the supervisors? Or what
Yeah.
kind of training should you build? Oh, for you guys as supervisors, definitely if you haven't jumped in and just gone through some of the peer support courses on the Academy of Peer Services, or even here within PeerTAC, definitely that. At the end of the day, understanding the role of a peer will go a long way as you begin to build and educate and supervise your peers. Also, motivational interviewing always works. Supervisory courses, and on APS, once you log in and create an account, there are like a dozen courses on supervision.
No,
I have to say,
I get that. Well, I
Mhm.
mean, but I found like I supervise both
Mhm.
certified peer specialists and SERPAs. And
Mhm.
working with each one of them comes with its own differences. To me, this seems like this would come with a whole bunch of differences as well. So that there may be specific training just for people who are justice impacted.
No, no. We're not that different from anybody else. The only thing that really makes us different is that our worldviews are differently. And I like to put it like this. Some of us didn't watch people going to work. Some of us didn't hear water cooler talk. Some of us had no idea what it means to be committed and to work. These are some things that might be worked on. There are those of us who have all of this, but again, our worldview sometimes has us looking at things differently, like constructive criticism. So if you're asking if there's a specific training built for this, no. This is more just arming yourself as supervisors and putting your more tools in your toolbox as you begin to work with this population. As supervisors, there's a lot that we should be doing with our supervising. And
Can
it's
I
just
jump
helpful
in,
to
Skip?
know. Yes?
Can I jump in as some help as a peer and a person that was justice impacted?
Yes, please.
I think
Yes.
as a peer working as a supervisor, my skills, period, are what works for me, and knowing how to be empathetic to somebody that is needing help learning how to do the computer, or like you said, just having the information of where to go. Where do I go? You go to the library. You want me to
Yes.
come with you? And supporting them genuinely. Let's go together. I don't know either. Just saying I don't know, or for somebody who says, hey, I don't know how to brush my teeth. Me neither. That's why I ain't got none. You want to go to the dentist with me? I'm scared of it. Just being genuinely empathetic has nothing to do with, when she says justice impact, I think that puts like a criminal aspect on them, but they weren't criminals before they went to jail. They just lost contraction while they were in there and became institutionalized, but then they have to come back out to the world, is what she's saying, and learn skills that we never had before or never got taught to have. Simple skills, just what y'all call basic, is really hard for some people who never, like you said, to be criticized was, to me, that I deal as a peer, I deal with someone who's was gay, and they was saying bitch, and I was like, and they was gay, and I was taking it, but then I learned through it, they don't mean bitch. They mean just bitch. And I'm sorry to use that language, but just to get a clarity, because I was just talking to the person, and they was just saying how I grew and got out of my uncomfort zone to hear them say that without cringing and feeling and making it about me, and it wasn't. It was just who they are as a person that runs in that circle. And it didn't mean anything. And once I got past that, we have a great relationship now.
Mm-hmm.
So part of what Skip is saying is just be truly authentic. And your peers that you have on your team already know how to work with impacted people at any level, and with the disrespect with their mouth. I have one person of another color that says black bitch that I'm working with without feeling impacted. I mean, I go to people and talk about it, but I'm bringing her to a place where she understands without being, because I'm a peer and she's a peer that's being hurt. We're working together. That's all this is about, on any level of any kind of impactful justice. And I love Skipper for even opening the doors to people that come out of jail and have somewhere to go. Somebody that can say, I got you, what's up? And say it in their language. Because that's another thing. How they talk to us ain't the same. And then trying to change a peer into a clinical worker sometimes don't work. And some of us don't want to be clinical workers. I love that you are gonna graduate and go on and use your skills to help other people coming out of jail. So to the person that asked the question, great question. Keep asking
Thank
those
you.
questions.
Thank you so much, Kimrita. Thank you. Thank you. You just blew it wide open. That's why I love you so much, girl. Thank you. Thank you. At the end of the day, this presentation wasn't meant to highlight the differences. It wasn't meant to put us on a pedestal or under a pedestal. It was just meant to open your mindset and to just be open, that knowing that we do come with some things sometimes. Does that mean we come with everything that was listed here? No, it doesn't. Does that mean that you will more than likely run across one or two of the things we listed? Yes, you will. But I'd rather have that tool in my toolbox where I could put it out when I needed it than not have it and be entirely lost and end up impacting or perpetrating harm or trauma on someone that we're supposed to be adequately supervising. This is what this presentation is meant for. At the end of the day, the places and spaces we've been, and I talk of that term so much, I should just say places, have traumatized us, have oppressed us. We were not allowed to grow. We were not allowed to learn. Some of us do have, I understand they're getting tablets now, but they're not connected to the internet. There's only but so much. Some of us were taught career training. Some of us was not. But does that negate the fact that we can and do? Does that negate the fact that we are great peers and can do the work? We just might need a little extra guidance and a little extra navigation. We're not asking for a handout. We're asking for a hand up. So there's some navigation involved. If you're working with someone who's been incarcerated for 30 years, more than likely there's a technology divide. Does that mean that that person's not a great peer? No, that person is an excellent peer. But when it comes to technology, there might be some skills that need to be reinforced, they need to be taught. Are you going to cancel out an excellent peer because maybe they're having problems writing an email or doing a note? No. An effective supervisor would take the time to work with them to get them where they need to be, to get them where they know they can be. It doesn't take away from our peer skills and the work we can do and how excellently we can help our participants, clients, or whatever you call them. It doesn't take away from that. And there's one more thing that I really wanted to talk about, but I really didn't have enough time on the PowerPoint. It's about the organizational culture. And I'm specifically slanting this last expression to organizations who have not hired peers before, who have not worked with peers, who have not worked with people with lived experiences. If you are an organization that have not welcomed into your organization peers and people with lived experiences, what might be needed might be a slight organizational culture shift. If you have always given service to people who are directly impacted or have lived experiences, how do you switch that organizational culture from one of giving service to one who welcomes in someone like that as a colleague? That's always been an issue, and it's not an unknown issue, and it's not nobody's fault. But when we come into the organizations as colleagues and coworkers, that's what we want to be looked at. We're not service recipients when we become employees, and we deserve to be treated as employees and not service recipient. Oh, we do have about 25 minutes. It's 3:20.
Yes,
Wow.
I do apologize, Skip. It is until 3:45. I was mistaken. I thought it was 3:30.
Okay, and I was looking at the time thinking gotta hurry up. I gotta hurry up. I apologize, everyone, but totally willing to like have this as an open conversation at the end of this. Does anybody else have any questions, thoughts, comments? And I got 42 of y'all on here. I see it. So I know somebody got something to say besides me.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I'll take the
Hi,
opportunity.
Sean.
Thank you. For Sean from Phoenix House in Bed-Stuy. I think for me, just kind of taking away, and you just said it at the end, like we have an advisory board meeting tomorrow. And I was just thinking, number one on that advisory board is like, how do we make sure that the perspectives of the people that we serve are represented on that advisory board? Because as you began talking and taking questions, thinking about like, if your justice impacted from institutional racism or structured racism, like you're coming back out, and it's tough to be resilient when you see those same structures in place, right? So you're trying to like foster that resiliency in people, but knowing it's still so tough to get back into a culture that or a community that may not value you. So just like having those conversations and trying to figure out like, how do we make it so that people see that there is that value in fighting, and just recommitting myself to being an advocate to make sure that I love that cultural humility, because I really think that spoke to me a lot. When I came into Bed-Stuy 3 years ago, historical Black community, I'm a white dude, part of the power structure, right? Like just stepping back and saying, I don't know anything. This is your community. What can I do to serve you? And then like learning so much. And it's just been like one of the biggest blessings just to see that, to not judge people. There was a lot in terms of, you see what's going on in the political structure with immigration, and how you have immigrants who are taking up a lot of resources that a lot of people who already have, low resource capital have some feelings about it, because we don't have anything, and then you're coming in and taking part of what we already don't have, and a lot of my white counterparts would be like, oh, well, you should have that empathy towards people. And it's like, well, that's not their lived experience in terms of having to fight to protect, what they have in their turf. And we see the uptick in violence in, East New York and Brownsville and certain areas where, that's what's going on. So that's just a lot to say, like that humility of saying like, yeah, that, I may not understand everything that's driving that, but I would love to hear from anyone, like, how do we continue to make sure that we're inviting that in, sustain the engagement, and make that room for people to stay? Because you said, don't even open the door if you don't make room for me to stay. How can we be intentional about making that room? And thank you so much for lending your voice, because it's so important to just hear it.
Thank you so much for jumping in and giving us your thoughts and reflections. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Do I gotta just go and call people? I see some of my ex-coworkers on this call. Don't let me shout you guys out. Well, I already did via chat.
Well, I could speak, since I was just answering her questions. As a person who works as a peer, and a peer who has several diagnoses and drug use and everything and all of that, I'm grateful to the agency I landed at, because they allowed me to be me. But I do see some of the barriers as the participants come in that are from the prison culture, and they're not understood, because they come in angry and they come in yelling and screaming, and people are taking it differently instead of just calming them down and talking to them. So that could be taught, learned, and having trainings. And do you have trainings like that for your workers that come in as far as the people that are coming in from, even they don't even have to be from jail to act like that anyway. They could be from the block or wherever we're from, my neighborhood, my last neighborhood where I'm from. They could come in and act like that. And the workers that we're hiring are not understanding that culture or that attitude and behavior, walking in the door, asking for help in such a manner that they can't even understand that these people are asking for help in a manner that they've been lived all their life, and they've been taught to ask for help in that manner, in such an aggressive manner that it's confusing to them and what they asking for. Like, why they here with that attitude? That's not what they mean to be. So is there training for them in that aspect?
There is plenty of training available, and here at the New York City Justice Peer Initiative, I'm training and building justice peers, but I'm also working it on two ends. So not only am I training those who are directly impacted to fulfill job positions as justice peers, I'm also going into organizations and training them on how to welcome justice peers, how to build these employment pathways. Everything that I actually put in this slide are actually scenarios and situations that I have been through. As a peer supervisor, I didn't always know everything, and I still don't. But I need to enter into situations with that thought in mind that no, I don't know everything, and I'm open to learning. And that's how a lot of us, we enter into situations knowing that we don't know everything, but we have that passion and that drive to succeed, and we're willing to learn. What we need is people willing to help us navigate, to help us walk that walk, willing to help teach us. And again, this is not anything about negativity about being justice impacted. When I shared my story, I also shared that I went in and out of the justice system for 25 years. I started at the age of 17. I came home for the last time in my 40s. But don't read that to think that I was in there for that long stretch of time. No, I would go in, get released. Then the next year I'd be back in, get released. Then the next year I'd be back in and get released. But I was on that hamster wheel of recidivism. Because every time I went into incarceration, I never received that proper support and treatment that would enable me to go home and not do the same things that I did before, that would get me the same things that I always got. You understand what I'm saying? So somewhere we have to break the cycle. We have to make sure that those who are coming home, whether they was there for a day or there for 50 years, that they have the skills and the supports necessary so that the cycle is broken. They don't have to revert to going back to doing the same things they always did, but that they're on to new and exciting things. And also to break the stigma, because there is stigma attached with being justice impacted. There's stigma attached with almost everything. And I call myself the stigma buster. Yeah, don't look at me and think I'm gonna be like all the others, because I'm not. That's why my name is Skip. Call it swag, call it ego, or whatever, but I am unapologetically here. So I am not going to apologize for my lived experiences, because that's what brought me into the room. So no, I'm not apologizing for them. Those are my lived experiences. That's my life journey. But that life journey, it brought me to this place right here, sitting here talking to you guys. And that I'm proud of. And if I can do anything to help the next person, and I always say, I'm here to make sure the system does not build any more skips, so that no one has to go through those cycles, that we have the proper supports available, that we build employment pathways. And not only build employment pathways, build the support mechanisms within the pathway. So again, we can walk through the door and we can stay in the room. And with today's behavioral health workforce shortage, everybody matters and everybody counts. I was just on the Daniels Law Task Force meeting where I gave testimony. and all the big wigs was there that I all know by name, and I'm not gonna, single out anyone. But the one thing I said was that peers need to be included. Those with lived experiences need to be included. But we also need support in developing this workforce. Now, what does that support mean? That means more funding for workforce development, which means more training, such as these that we've had for the last 2 days. This is the first time anyone has ever thought about putting a whole summit together all about supervising peers. The first time. And we've been around for years. I myself started as a peer in 2007. We're now in 2024. This is the first time I've ever seen this. Vicky, I see you. Please jump in.
Here I am. Good afternoon, and thank you
Hey,
for a wonderfully uplifting, really raw and real presentation. My
thank you.
question is, the agency that I work for does hire peers.
Mhm.
The place that I think that we could get better, which is where my question lies, is making the right fit for the different programs that we have. So I myself have interviewed peers that I'm like, this is a wonderful person with a lot to offer. But if they don't match the exact population by experience, I want to make sure that I'm making the right fit. Let me put it that way. So if one of my teams does outreach for street and subway dwelling, then I want to make
Mhm.
sure that I'm providing a peer that has enough experience to provide hope and encouragement and resources. And you get that, and without asking,
Mhm.
like, is this exactly the population that you identify with? Or seeing their peer credentials and just being willing to announce themselves as a peer and making the right fit for a peer is not just a peer is a peer is a peer and put them here and put them there. And because of the work shortage that you're talking about, you want to make meaningful connections and also hire people that end up feeling like it's the right fit. And then so I guess my question lies in how much are we trying to match up the lived experience in the programs that peers are applying for? I don't know, too convoluted?
I am
No,
so
no.
sorry to interrupt, Skip. I just want to
Yes.
let you know we have 9 minutes left. So
Okay, I got just enough to dig into this. Thank you so much. So basically, if I heard your question right, um, how do you hire peers who fit the programs and the participants' experiences within the program?
I
So
think it's
first of
more than
all,
that, it's more like asking, people have applied for these open positions, right? And so if you've
I
positioned,
am okay.
this is,
Asking the right questions. So right now, what you're really looking at, you're diving into DEI territory, and you're diving into what should somewhat be the realm of your HR department or people and culture. At the very basic level, peers are meant to discuss and divulge their life experiences. I mean, that's something that we do. That's how we build relationships. That's how we create mutuality. As a peer, I'm willing to talk about what I've been through in relation to what you've been through. You know, I'll just give you a story. I ran a program with the OHMH, which did outreach, and we worked entirely in the field. I hired peers who have lived experiences of both mental health and substance misuse. I hired community health workers as well. And the key being that community health workers, they're health workers from the community. When I look for people for outreach beyond those basic criteria, I was looking for a people person. I was looking for someone who can build and create a relationship. I was looking for someone who could walk up to a completely unknown stranger, look them in their eyes, smile at them, and ask them how they're doing. And by employing eye-to-eye contact really meant, how are you doing? So this was not just superficial. There are some people who are beautiful relationship builders who can smile and talk and laugh with anyone. Some of these things, and I'm speaking as a former peer supervisor, I couldn't really ask in like an interview. I couldn't ask in an interview, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm bordering on asking something I'm not supposed to ask, that is not within my purview to ask. How do you navigate that? How do you navigate that? That is a question for every supervisor. How do you navigate that? The first thing that I would say is that in building the position, please be authentic, please be intentional. Please list exactly what you need.
Mhm.
You can list what type of experience you're looking for in the position, how you go about interviewing peers and asking about this information. There's some sticking points and some things you got to shy away from, but at its most basic, a peer should be able to divulge and talk about their lived experiences. So there are
We are
roundabout ways to doing it. There are roundabout ways to doing
Mhm.
it. You know, you don't have to come out like, um,
Right.
do you
I'm
have street
recently
cred?
I'm
You
recently
know.
losing a peer
Mhm,
who said to their supervisor, who I supervise, I I'm willing to use my experience in recovery from my diagnoses, but I've never been
mhm.
street or subway dwelling. And because of that, I feel like I'm struggling to connect with this person. And
But
that became the barrier for the
mhm,
peer to figure out, it was like almost watching Double Dutch. And where do I get it? Where do I say? Where do I connect? How do I use my story when on the superficial level, it seemed like they didn't have, or he didn't think that there was something that he had in common enough to make those inroads. And so that's why I'm asking about making the right fit. Maybe it wasn't the right fit for him. Maybe seeing it in practice was what it was illuminating ultimately.
mhm,
But,
mhm.
even people that have similar backgrounds don't have the same experience. And so figuring
Not
out,
everyone has
right,
every same experience as everybody else.
which
That's
is
why
why I'm asking
worldviews,
about the fit, in
yeah,
terms
are
of how
so
many things in common should the peer have to the population, and the right fit, if it's, how many check boxes do they feel would strike the good match, or for the agency, for the members, right? For the member who says, this person just keeps talking to me about their experience with the mental health system, and I'm not there, right? And so there's that disconnect of wanting to utilize the peers' experience and hope, and also meet the needs, and maybe feeling like I missed it, or the peer feels like he missed it, or the member feels like this agency that's providing me services has missed it.
so there's so much that you just unpacked, and I know we don't have enough time, and I'm willing to jump on something personally and get with you. But the one thing that I do want to point out is that, just like I talked about empathy, peers are also empathetic. We are able to take someone else's perspective. Sometimes the perspective of someone else will not directly reflect an experience that I have had personally. But the emotion, which is a different aspect of the experience, could be something that I can pull some type of mutuality from. And if that's not it, I then go into oh my God, I go into my toolbox and pull out my motivational interviewing skills and create conversation. And in creating conversation, I'm building relatability. I'm building mutuality. So maybe we don't talk about living street homeless on a subway. Maybe we don't talk about that. And if it was me, I don't have lived experience about living street homeless on the subway. But what I do have is lived experience about being undomiciled completely. Maybe this person has not moved from the subway system to the shelter system. I have a lot of lived experience about living in a shelter system. But it's that one basic thing that I can be empathetic towards and I can take perspective from. It's being undomiciled, it's being homeless. And a good peer would be able to help craft that relationship and build that relationship.
I agree.
Sean, I see you raised your hand.
Thank you. Yeah, I know we're right up on time, but
Yeah,
as a supervisor, making time for your peers to engage with other peers. So shameless plug, I put in the chat, brooklynrecovery.org. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's a box. You can click it. It has every one of our flyers. We create a peer-led group supervision experience on Thursdays and Saturdays, virtual or in person, where you can say, I don't have any experience being undomiciled in the subway system. Does anyone here? Can I connect that person that I'm working with somebody else, or bring you in, or network? So, but we have to, as supervisors, create space for people to do that, because I tell you, I've been trying to get Serpas and peer specialists from other programs to take part in what we're doing for that workforce, and it's very difficult. So make time for your Serpas.
Thank
yeah,
you so much.
and a lot of it is also about supervision. Peers are going to be excellent in peer support. We are excellent in relationship building. We're excellent in creating mutuality. Is there a narrative or a checkbox that you should build that this person has XYZ and it should be reflected in this? I've never seen it happen. I've just seen it organically blossom. I just want to be intentional. I've never seen a checkbox where I'm hiring a peer. Because at the end of the day, we have a different worldview. So I've never seen that. I would just suggest that you work intentionally with the peer about peer competencies, values, and skills. And somewhere within that skill set is something that peer can use to create that relationship, to create that mutuality.
Thank you so much, Skip. And we are right
Yes,
at
thank you,
time.
everyone.
Thank you, Skip and Precious, for the educational, inspirational presentation. Thank you to our sponsors at OMH, our partners at the Alliance and Rights and Recoveries. And thank you all for taking the time of your busy day and being here today. To access this session, to access the next session, I'm sorry, please feel free to go back into the link, the Final Summit program. There's a link, you click on it and you go right back to where you need to be. It's the end of the day now. A recording of the session will be available within 30 days in the PeerTAC website. I put the information on the chat. Thank you for your participation, and we hope to see you again. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye.